The sun crested the horizon, turning the dust of the trail into a fine, golden haze. Rick tightened the cinch on the saddle, his hands moving with the practiced rhythm of a man who had done this 1,000 times. Blaze shifted his weight, hooves crunching against the dry, compacted earth. Beside them, Rusty paced in a tight circle. Rick reached down, checking the lever-action rifle tucked securely into the leather sleeve at his side. The metal was cool against his palm. He looked back at the team of horses pulling the heavy wagon, their breath hitching in the quiet air. He stepped toward the trail and knelt, pressing his hand into the deep, jagged grooves carved into the ground by countless wagons before his. These ruts stretched out toward the horizon, a massive, scarred web that seemed to swallow the world whole. The silence of the plains felt heavy. He stood, wiped the grit from his fingers, and swung into the saddle. The wagon groaned as the wheels began to turn. A sharp, splintering crack echoed across the flatlands, followed by the heavy, uneven drag of the wagon. Rick pulled on the reins, bringing the team to a sudden halt. He swung down from the saddle, his boots sinking into the loose, parched soil. He moved to the rear wheel, running his calloused fingers along the wooden frame until he found the point of failure. A single spoke had snapped clean, leaving the rims sagging under the weight of their supplies. He stood, staring at the brake. He reached into his pack, pulling out a small, worn medical kit. He did not open it to treat a wound, but to check the supply of quinine and salts. He knew the truth of the trail. It was not the accidents that claimed the most lives, but the slow, invisible rot of disease. He hammered a makeshift brace into the wheel, the sound of metal on wood ringing out like a warning. He climbed back onto the horse, his eyes scanning the path ahead with a new, sharp intensity. The journey was no longer just about distance. Rick pulled the wagon to a stop near a cluster of stunted sagebrush to take stock of their remaining provisions. He climbed into the back, shifting heavy crates and burlap sacks to reach the bottom of the stores. The flour was low. The salted meat was drying out faster than he had calculated. He counted the days left in the journey against the remaining rations, his brow furrowing as the math refused to balance in their favor. The silence of the plains was absolute, until a sharp, guttural bark cut through the air. Rusty had bolted from the shade, his hackles raised, teeth bared toward a thicket of dry grass. A coyote darted from the brush. Rick grabbed his rifle, the weight of the steel grounding him as he tracked the animal through the sights. The coyote paused, snarled, and vanished into a ravine, but the threat lingered in the air like smoke. Rick lowered the rifle, his heart hammering against his ribs. He looked toward the horizon, where the land stretched out in an endless, undulating line. The pressure of the journey tightened. The incline ahead was steep, littered with loose shale and jagged, protruding rocks. Rick looked at Blaze, then back at the team pulling the heavy wagon. Their flanks were heaving, coated in a thick, dark lather of sweat. He knew the cost of pushing them further under the load. He slid from the saddle, his boots hitting the hard-packed earth with a dull thud. He took the lead, gripping the leather reins firmly. Every step was a deliberate calculation of weight and balance. The wagon groaned, a deep, protesting sound of wood against stone. Suddenly, the front left wheel struck a hidden boulder. The entire frame lurched, tilting violently toward the ravine edge. Rick threw his shoulder against the side of the wagon, his muscles straining, veins standing out on his neck as he fought to keep the momentum forward. He dug his heels into the grit, forcing the team to pivot away from the drop. The wagon shuddered, settled, and rolled back onto the track. He wiped the stinging salt from his eyes and kept moving. He led the way, guiding the team through the treacherous pass one agonizing foot at a time. The river crossing marked the end of the day. Rick unhitched the horses, their heavy breathing slowing as they drank from the cool, rushing water. Rusty paced the perimeter, ears twitching at the rustle of leaves in the tree line. Rick gathered dry wood, struck a match, and watched the flames catch. He sat on a log, pulling his 6-gun from its holster. He worked the action, wiped the barrel with a rag, and checked the cylinder. The rhythmic click of metal against metal filled the silence. He stared into the fire, watching the embers rise and vanish into the black sky. He had faced floods, broken axles, and the constant threat of the unknown. He set the gun aside, leaned back, and watched the flames die down. Tomorrow, the trail would demand more. He closed his eyes, listening to the water. At first light, they would move forward again.